Okay, part two, Aileen Wuernos. Again, she was saying that she knows that she was unhinged, and she knows that she's saying off the rails. She went off the rails, you know. Um, she she doesn't really have necessarily per se an excuse for that, except for the fact that again she just snapped. And so this is where it comes into the Kali story and the divine feminine and the feminine wounding. And so this is actually a collective wound for feminines, and that's what we wanted to kind of, as she and I were talking, we wanted to bring forth, because now where she's at, she has the awareness that I have in that story. She didn't really have that before, or her whole life would have been very different. Um, so she is just wanting me to bring that too for you. Okay, so collective feminine wounding is an ancient wound around both SRA and um, prostitution. It's a core wound for the divine feminine, because in the beginning of the split between the masculines and feminines, the feminines were forced into oppression because they were physically weaker and they couldn't physically fight the masculines. And this goes way back into Anunnaki stories and beyond, where these people were, the feminines were, you know, basically just sold to whichever person wanted them. And it's such a core wound from the internal part of the soul. Additionally, the child SRA, that is also a core wound for both masculines and feminines, but more so in general for feminines. I think that's changed over time. It affects the masculines in different ways because it affects their ideas around masculinity, and whereas with the feminines it kind of holds them in these trauma loops. And so that's really what she's trying to say, is that at the core of the essence of the soul's journeys and all that go through those things is that there comes this time where you get to a place where you are willing to go balls out. That's how she's calling it, balls out. You know, you're just gonna go balls out. You're just gonna, you don't care anymore because you have seen the worst of humanity. And she saw the very, very, very worst of humanity, and she never really got treated with respect by anybody. And she acknowledges now that some of that's kind of like, if she had a chance to move through life a little differently, she could have found that in herself. But she didn't have a chance. That's the problem, is that she really just didn't have a chance from the very beginning. Her father was imprisoned. He was, I believe, a graper. He unalived himself in prison for this. And then her grandfather SRA'd her. And so there was all these traumas. She never really got to see in an ounce of love. And so she didn't know anything different. She literally, honestly, just did not see anything in life that showed her love until she met her lover. Now, this happens to a lot of souls, and if they really do their spiritual work and they can evolve, they can get past this trauma, and they can shift in and have a paradigm shift and go into enlightenment. But that's, it has to happen in your time. It doesn't happen to very many each timeline. So in her case, she was intended to come in, and in some ways this happened as a reflection and a manifestation of the sickness in the shadow body of humanity. So that's again what she and I had been talking about, is that yeah, it's not necessarily that it's that she's this bad guy the way everybody really painted her out to be. It's really disgusting in many ways that society called her the monster when her entire life was surrounded with monsters that were torturing her. And then when she finally snaps, she's the bad guy. Well, don't we see that all the time with narcissists, where they can beat you, beat you, beat you, and then when you finally fight back, then you're the one that's the bad one? And that's honestly all that happened. Now, mind you, what she did is not something that we recommend for anybody to do unless you're defending your life, which she says she was. So there comes a bit of a conflict. And of course, once you get put in a situation like this, it's kind of natural that anybody that got put in such an unbelievably bad situation, even if they were the actor in the play, that the next natural instinct is, well, I'm going to see how long I can ride this out without turning myself in. And so that's kind of what she did. But again, she says that she knows that the police were involved. They knew about her, according to her. And she goes into really deep rabbit holes where I can hear her, when she wants me to say this to everyone, that actually it's a way bigger story. And she's telling me right now that Charles Manson, and maybe I'll try to connect to him another time, but she's telling me that Charles Manson understands everything she does, and she says that he was she's saying that there was a government program that MK Ultra'd them. That's what she's saying, that they were MK Ultra'd. Now Manson's a whole nother story, so we're going to save that for another time because his story is different. But in her case, she is saying very insistently that she was MK Ultra'd, and that they used technologies on her also to affect her. And again, she from a spiritual perspective, where she's at now, she also understands the esoteric side of the influences that were trying to take her down, trying to get her to do what she did. And so now we go into how, some entities were trying to influence her choices as well. And so that's kind of her message. She makes sure that she tells everybody. She doesn't want anybody to follow in her footsteps. She's not saying that this is a good thing that happened. If she could have done her life differently, she would. And she says she can, because she knows now that she can come into another form if she wants. She is not, and I can see this in the astral realm, that she is not in what people call hell, because she has made peace with herself, her story, and the divine. And again, she is a perpetrator, but she is also absolutely a victim to society and to everyone that hurt her. She also says that, if there was a different way around things, that she probably wouldn't have become so unhinged. And she also admits that alcohol contributed to her weakness. She's calling it weakness, that it contributed to her becoming weak and snapping the way that she did. She says that if alcohol wasn't involved, she probably would have definitely not done that. It amplified her anger, and it also gave her superpowers that she shouldn't have had, in terms of feeling tougher than she really was when stuff hit the fan. So in short, her story is the divine feminine story, connected to the divine feminine wounding and to the child wounding of those that have been tortured and abused, that is part of the collective consciousness. And it manifested through her in her story in such a way that caused her to be kind of blown up in front of society, so society could have to see what happens when you neglect and abuse an SRA people. And also she says that in many ways, from a spiritual perspective, that her role was to be this female serial unaliver, was to help humanity also see the dark side of the feminine wounding that needs to be cleared and healed in the future if we don't want to see more stories like hers happen. I think for now we covered as much as we could, so if I have to, I'll do another video, but let me know in the notes how you guys liked it. Namaste, see you next time.